Say, I'm grateful for what the Lord brings in my life. No matter what it is, I am grateful. Because in everything I give thanks. For this is the will of God in Christ Jesus concerning me. I want to welcome you, Facebook Live people. Thank you for coming on tonight. I'm going to talk about something that I think you might find interesting, and that is, do you believe that Jesus was a liberal or a conservative? Listen, you asked for it. I mean, I am getting so excited because we're coming down to a place to where you're going to run out of questions pretty soon. And so we're going to talk about that tonight. But let me just kind of mention a couple things. You have the 5K race on September the 9th, which is kind of a running race and a walking race, or however you want to do it. And if you just want to turtle your way through, I guess you can do that just as well. But what we want to do with that, which I think is really kind of cool, is that we're actually we've made the benefit to an orphanage, Jenny Kutz's orphanage in Greece, which, and Jenny, that's what Lazalia and I were talking about just a second ago. That was a picture of Jenny, but she looks exactly like her mother. Just like her mother, who is Kelly Copeland, Kenneth Copeland's daughter. And so, but that is on September the 9th. And what we want to do with that for you is this. We want to make sure that we actually reach out, just not call it an outreach, but we reach out to people that are our family and friends and people that are very much interested in people, in children and orphanages and things like that. And that's everywhere. One of the things that I really don't want to do, and it's hard to get people not to do it, but what we don't want to do, and I know Linda doesn't want you to do that, but she's in Indiana tonight, is that her and Asalia are not really interested in us reaching into the church to be able to minister to the kids in the orphanage. We really want to give people who are on the outside of what we do that opportunity. And so really, for me, I could call family members today and get a whole bunch of stuff that they want to be able to give to the children who are in Greece and into that orphanage. And a lot of times what we do is we just consistently seem to go to people who are on the inside of things to be able to find a way to be able to take care of those different needs we have. But this really is to help us reach out. Also, on October the 5th, everyone say October the 5th. And that is where we have Rebuilding the Walls, and it's leaving a legacy, and it's just fulfilling a promise is what it is. Everyone say fulfilling a promise. And what that is, because there's been a little bit of a question around it, and maybe that things haven't been quite as, let's say, defined for you. And that is what we have here is that we have a building that is paid for. And when you have a building that's paid for, and it's kind of like you, if you've never gotten Botox, you probably need to. I mean, if you've never kind of done that before. Or what it is that if you haven't kind of lost a few extra pounds that you need to lose, you got to get out there and you got to make it work. I mean, if you got to go get your hair fixed, go get your hair fixed, whatever you need to do. And so buildings are like that too. And they have a roof on it. They've got floors. It's the time of the season. It's not a problem. Now, I'm trying to remember, was that the Zombies? It was the Zombies, wasn't it? Trivia Man, was that the Zombies? What year was that?
That was like
1967. He picked it. The time of the season, the Zombies. Okay, just remember that next time you want to challenge me, that I got that together. But on October the 5th, we have our Rebuilding the Walls. And what that is that we are really looking, and I haven't done it before. If you want to know a mistake I made, let me tell you about a mistake I made. My mistake was that when we got done paying for the building, I never really wanted you to do anything to take care of the building. We've got to take care of it as well. I'm not going to let this thing fall into disrepair just so we can say, well, hey, we paid for this thing one time and now it's over. Oh no, are you kidding me? As soon as you don't need to eat, as soon as you don't need to burn fuel, then I'll kind of like let you kind of know about that. But that rebuilding the walls, fulfilling a promise, I want that to be able to go on for you and for your kids just as well. So please be praying about what it is that you're going to really do with that. I know that Linda and I are talking about what it is that we're going to be able to do, and I'm really looking forward to it. And I'm just asking God to help me be number one. I just want to be, I want to lead you not only in other areas of life, but I want to lead you in the arena of generosity just as well. And so that is October the 5th. And so please sign up, get your ticket, and it's going to be kind of a dinner, right? Is that what it's going to be? It's going to be a dinner, and so that will be, everyone say October the 5th. October the 5th. Now that used to be Denolfo's. It's not Denolfo's anymore. It's Waterfall or same thing. Tuscany, Waterfall, same stuff. Don't worry about it, okay? Everybody get up on your feet. We have a question for you tonight. Here it is. Ask your neighbor, and here's your question. What do you think, or who do you think is the most important person alive today? We know that Jesus is the most important. We've got that already. And so there's no cop-out. And when you decide who the most important person is, I want you to say why. Go. Who is the most important person in the world? Now, Carl, was that a remix of Daft Punk? Was that a remix of Daft Punk, or was that a Calvin Harris song? I'm not sure, because I've been going through my database here, and I was kind of unsure. Trivia Man, do you know anything about that? Okay, it's out of my area. It's out of my area. I think that would be a remix or a remix of Daft Punk, if I'm not mistaken. But okay. The most important person in the world, Cheryl Hauser. I mean, I know me, but okay.
Eric and I were talking, and he made a good point. He said that the most important person in the world today would probably be so humble you wouldn't even know who they were. So I just said, to me, the most important person alive today is my husband, because he keeps me balanced. When I'm way over here, he kind of reels me back in.
Cheryl, that is so Christian. That is just so Christian. That's really good. Okay, Daryl.
Well, she said Steve Jobs, somebody who runs Apple, or something like that.
Yeah, Steve Jobs. It's good. I'm there.
It could be somebody like that, I guess.
Yeah.
Somebody that impacts, culture in a positive way, makes people's lives easier with,
Hey, listen, what about that iPhone 8 that's coming out, man? The stock market is going crazy over this iPhone 8 stuff. Huh? Excuse me? Well, here's the deal. When Samsung, here's the thing, I'm all for you guys. I have no axe to grind versus iOS and what's the other thing they call it? It's so little. Android, yeah. It's an Android. Here's the thing. Do you know the thing about the latest technologies? The latest technologies become very difficult when you have to make hundreds of millions of them. When you just have to make a few, it works out just fine. It's just, huh?
But Steve Jobs would turn over his grave if he saw that y'all copied off of our module.
Man, I'll tell you what. Steve Jobs is a happier man right now. I pray.
He's not caring.
I pray. He doesn't care. He didn't care much. He didn't care much about it. But I'm not going to get into this Android iOS thing because that's worse than talking about what we're going to talk about tonight. And that is, was Jesus a liberal or was he a conservative? Now, what I'm going to do a lot tonight, so that all of you know, and you guys over the Facebook Live, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to look down a lot, and that way I won't have to look at your face while I'm saying what I'm about to say. But now, I realize all of this too, so let me just kind of read this through for you. I said, was Jesus a liberal or a conservative? When asked this question, I thought, you have got to be kidding me that this question actually came up on our sheets, but here I go. I'm not a politician, as you know. I am not anything except I'm a Christian. I'm a pastor who leads both liberal and conservative Christians. My main intent, so that you understand, is to not persuade you to the right or to the left in anything that you think, but to help reveal who Jesus is and how we respond to him. It's interesting, but how we respond to Jesus is really based upon our political views. You think it through. We really base our relationship with God, or we really relate our relationship with Jesus to what our political views are. When the last president was elected, there were some people that were just had their hands up in the air and just going, oh, thank you, Jesus, thank you, Jesus. And then there were others who got down on their face and were crying and thought that they needed to be put into a mental institution. And so which one of those two were actually accurate? But we really respond to Jesus based upon our political views and the way that we see things. So I can only give you what I believe that the Bible teaches. You see, we need to choose to focus on what we believe God's character to be. Interestingly enough, there isn't one person in this room that can see everything from God's perspective. They see things from their perspective, and their perspective most often has a political taint to it because that's what they believe about how Jesus is. Funny enough, our minds are so finite that we cannot have this view that undertakes all of the way that God acts and what he believes accurately about every subject. We are not that infinite to be able to do that. And that's the reason why that we hold different opinions, that we feel different ways about things. And that's what causes one set of people or a people group to be different than another people group. Because we see things differently politically. Not just if you're here in America, but it's the same way around the world. You know, it's the same way around the world. I see Matthew and Elizabeth Thomas from Itarsi, India, who are here tonight. But yet, at the same time, today I had to go to my general practitioner because once you go to one doctor, they have to make you go to 100. And since I'm only on 97, that means I'm not finished yet. So, I mean, I've got a few more that I have to go to. But really what happened was that my GP or general practitioner is and I think, Matthew, you call that a Sikh. Would he be a Sikh? Yeah. He is I can't say it on Facebook. But what it is that he wears a turban, right? He wears a turban. So I didn't know that about him when I first went there. I thought, surprise, surprise, when I went in. I mean, I didn't ask him whether or not that he was a Christian, but he believes something about God or a God that actually causes him to react and respond in the way that he responds. Now, whether that's right or wrong, I'm not even trying to approach that. But what I'm saying is that you and I are so finite, we can't necessarily understand the way that God feels about all of these different things about life. So what is a liberal? So you know, I want to let you know that these are definitions that are dictionary definitions. They are not Robb Thompson definitions. If they're Robb Thompson anything, I will let you know that I did it, and I will plead guilty and throw myself upon the mercy of the court. I have no trouble with that. But here is what a liberal is, or so said. They're open to new behavior or opinions and openly willing to discard traditional values. They are willing to give away the traditional values that actually, let's even say, that make you an American. They're willing to put that away. They're willing to define what it means to be an American. They're willing to define what it means to be human. They're willing to define all these things, and they're willing to actually change all of the things that they believe, thus actually doing to a conservative what conservatives believe are, we'll just say, emotional and spiritual hara-kiri for the country. That's what they do. But they're willing to do that. Now, to some people's ears, that is just a fine thing to do. We need to challenge traditional values. We need to challenge authority. We need to challenge all of the things that we believe in, and we need to start asking the question why of anyone that holds a position that would absolutely keep another people group down or keep them from succeeding. And that lives inside of us in the church world just as well. So here's an example. They have more liberal views toward marriage and divorce than others. That's what liberals do. They have a different view of marriage and divorce than other individuals. They're concerned with broadening a person's general knowledge and experience rather than with technical or traditional or professional teaching, training, and thinking. But what's a conservative, so that you know? What is a conservative? It's holding to traditional attitudes and values and cautious about changing any of them. That's the reason why that your kids will come out, and even Jesse said it to me last week. Jerry said it to me in different occasions and said that people have actually said to them, well, you're old-fashioned. And Jerry just said to himself, I might be old-fashioned, but I think I'm going to stay that way. It was interesting that one of Jesse's stories that he told me, and he said it in a very trembling way, but in a church on the West Coast just recently, that actually he was finished with the Sunday evening service. It was about 10:30 at night, and he had just gotten out of the shower. He was all finished and just about ready to go to sleep, and there was a knock on his door. And realizing that it was a couple girls from the church, he opened the door, and they said, well, Jesse, pastor sent us over to be able to minister to your needs. And Jesse said, oh, that's so nice. Thank you so much. I'm okay. My basket's really good. You guys did a great job. And one of the girls said, no, that's not why we're here. We're here to minister to you and your needs, because you have needs. So, of course, Jesse went to the pastor the next day. And as he went to the pastor the next day, then he told the pastor, he said, did you send these girls over here? He said, oh, yeah. He said, that's kind of like just what that's kind of like what's happening now. And he said, well, do you realize how close you are to judgment? He said, you're just old-fashioned. And the guy dropped dead in 90 days behind the pulpit. That was pretty good. So a conservative is an individual who holds to traditional attitudes and values and is very cautious about changing them. That's why your kids turn around and they tell you that you are old-fashioned, because you're not willing to actually challenge the thoughts of where your parents came from or the scriptures came from. So let me ask you a question. What do you think that these verses mean? And here's a conservative verse. Remove not the ancient landmark. We just talked about it. He said, which your fathers have set. But now here's a very liberal one. Do not remove the ancient landmark, nor enter the fields of the fatherless. That's interesting. Oh, listen, God from the beginning, he said that you need to be taking care of these people. And you know, you don't ever go to take anything from them. You only go to give something to them. The other guy says, no, he says, you don't remove the ancient landmarks that were set up in life. He said, because for their Redeemer is mighty, and here's going to plead their cause against you. So it's confusing, isn't it? It's very confusing. And so what's the difference? Conservatives and liberals approach almost every issue with completely different philosophies and underlying assumptions. They just approach things differently. So this is why it's so hard to find genuine compromise between conservatives and liberals, because they go about things and they approach subjects in different ways. Where one of them says, you know, you don't remove the ancient landmarks, and the other one says, yeah, but you don't go into the fields of the fatherless because their Redeemer is mighty and he's going to bring judgment on you if that's what you do to go and take advantage of someone. So one person says you don't move this. The other one says, yeah, but. One attitude is one that is very adolescent, and the other one is very, sadly, mature. But that's only because you and I don't have the broadness or the ability to be able to think in the ways that would bring the fullness that we want to bring. That, remember Winston Churchill when he said, listen, he said, if you're 20 years old, and he said, and you're not a liberal, he said, you have no heart. He said, but if you're 30 and you're not a conservative, he said, you have no what? You have no brain. Winston Churchill. I wish I would have said that. That was a pretty good statement. I kind of like that one. So they approach almost every issue with completely different philosophies and assumptions. So let me take a few moments to explain some of the key differences between liberals and conservatives to you so that you'll understand. Remember, you asked this question. Look at your neighbor, said, you asked for it. Okay, this is what you get. I would rather have you learn it from me than for you to learn it on the street. Same ways you don't want your kids learning stuff on the corner. So here are 6 key differences between liberals and conservatives. Here's number 6 as we wind down to 1. Number 6 is conservatives believe that individual Americans have a right to defend themselves and their families with guns, and that right cannot be taken away by any method short of a constitutional amendment. Can't take it away. Can't just decide that you're not, you can't do that. You see, and that conservatives would actually oppose a constitutional amendment for that. But now liberals believe this. Liberals believe that by taking arms away from citizens, they can prevent criminals from using guns in the commission of crimes. Pretty interesting, isn't it? Here's number 5. Conservatives largely believe that society should be colorblind, where people are judged by the content of their character and the merits of their actions. Liberals believe that discrimination is permissible as long as its primary benefits or primarily benefits the chosen group that they're in. Example, I'll give you just an example from today. It's interestingly enough, when the president came out with merit-based immigration, that he was actually backing merit-based immigration. Sure, we'll have immigration reform, but what it is it's going to be merit-based immigration. That means you can't be kicked out of the country 20 times, come back and rape a girl, and then blame the girl because she's a female. You have to do something with the guy who came over 20 times. Because remember last week, it was just last week, that all those people were found dead in that semi-tractor trailer. Last week. They dropped the trailer like they should have. They only forgot to open the door. So the door was locked and the people couldn't get out and they suffocated to death. So people don't need to jump the fence. They don't need to run the border. They don't need to swim the Rio Grande. They just need to be a person who, by the content of their character, wants to give their family something better. Because they were giving them something good before they left. But coming here would give them a better life. Because the entire world altogether does less on a global scale than America does in 1 year. This past year, America had 1.7 million immigrants. The rest of the entire world did not have that many. So it's not that people are heartless or any of those other things. So liberals believe that discrimination is permissible as long as it primarily benefits their chosen group. You see, violence becomes okay because what that does is it shows that people, don't really want those kinds of things. Now, let me ask you a question. Do you think that I'm a liberal or conservative? Just so I can tell you before you even think. Neither. Neither. I'm neither. Because I have a need to take care of the poor. But I also have a need to make sure that people have something to take care of the poor with. So you got to have both. And so here, number 4, as we're on our way down, is conservatives are capitalists who believe that entrepreneurs who amass wealth through their personal efforts are good for the country and should never be punished for doing so. Liberal thinking, they're very socialist in view, who view business owners as people who cheated a system. They figured out how to cheat the system. Although liberals believe that high achievers are necessary to finance the social programs. Isn't that true? We need those people that make a lot of money. I need you business owners to be able to make money. So what we can do is we can help people that are less fortunate. But I need to remember that if I were ever to be fair about what I did, I could never treat one person different than I treated another. It's a funny thing. As I was looking over even the different things that we have in our employee manuals and those kinds of things just recently, one of the things that happens is that the government has now gotten smart enough, I guess, to be able to make sure that you never treat one employee nepotistically, while what it is that you're not giving the very same thing to another employee. Whatever you do for one person as an employee, you need to make sure that you do it for every employee. You need to make that available for everyone. You can't just do one and not the other. So here is number 3 on our way down. Conservatives believe that abortion ends the life of an innocent child, and thus they oppose abortion. Now, I'm going to tell you exactly why I'm saying this, is that most liberals believe that although abortion kills an innocent child, somebody said, well, they don't talk about it as being a child. They talk about it as being matter. They talk about it as being different cells and things like that. But recently, of the recent past, they have changed now to agree that it actually is a child. And so most believe that although abortion kills, they believe the rights of the mother to be more important. That she has more of a right over her body, no matter if her body did something that she shouldn't have done previous to all of that. So what it is that, isn't it funny how in every one of these situations that I brought up, you have to stand somewhere. You can't stand everywhere. You have to stand somewhere. One believes in the rights of the child. The other one believes in the rights of the mother. One believes in the rights of the business owner, while the other one believes in the rights of the people that are actually going to be getting something from those business owners. So I think you need to make the business owners happy, or else those business owners are not really going to be able to make the money that's necessary in order to take care of people who need it. Number two is conservatives tend to be patriotic, and they believe that America is a great nation and are primarily interested in looking out for the good of the country. People that are liberal in thought are internationalists. I wish I would have made that up. I didn't make that up. They're internationalists in feeling. As a matter of fact, we just came through, if you recall, the last 8 years where we were all attempting to do whatever we could do to become citizens of the world. Not a citizen of the United States, I'm a citizen of the world. And so those are the difference. One wants to be an American and the other one wants to be global in their feelings. Can't stand in both places, can you? Even at the expense of a nation. And then, number one that I have written here is conservatives, by and large, believe in God and think that the Constitution has been twisted to try to purge Christianity from the public square. And I'll prove that in just a moment. They believe that the country has been successful because it is fundamentally good. And if it ever turns away from the Lord, it will cease to prosper. Liberals also, by and large, are hostile to Christian tradition. A play at Christmas time, Christmas tree, Happy Resurrection Day, a judge putting the 10 Commandments on the wall of his court, or store employees saying Merry Christmas instead of Happy Holidays. Liberal thinkers are dedicated to driving reminders of Christianity from American society. And there have been many that have said that for approximately 20 years at this point, there's been a real war on that culture. But liberals suggest that if Jesus were on the earth today, you guys don't need to seem so depressed. Don't seem so depressed. But I'll tell you what, you kind of spread out then, don't you? Because every person in here has a feeling or has a way that they actually approach something. One person approaches it from the perspective of, let us care for all. The other one approaches it from the perspective as, let's take care of home first, and then we can care for others later. While at the same time, we need to care for people. You know, when Jesus loved the little children, he didn't care if they're 90. When you think about how old God is, when you think about how old God is, man, a 90-year-old is kind of like a spring chicken for him. So liberals suggest that if Jesus were on the earth today, he would teach, never stop evil and turn the other cheek. if Jesus were on the earth. So here, in Matthew chapter 5, verse number 39, and here's where I'll come into some biblical understandings for you. Jesus said, "But I tell you not to resist an evil person. But whoever slaps you on your right cheek, turn the other one to him also. And if anyone wants to sue you and take away your tunic, let him also have your cloak. And whoever compels you to go 1 mile, go with him 2. Give to him who asks you, and from him who wants to borrow from you, do not turn away." He said, "You have heard that it was said, 'You shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy.' He said, 'But I say to you, love your enemies, bless those who curse you, do good to those who hate you, and pray for those who spitefully use you and persecute you.'" So, a person who also is liberal in their thought will say this: "How can you say anything? You do it too. You do that just as well." Matthew chapter 7, verse number 1, Jesus said this: "Don't judge and you won't be judged. For with the same judgment that you judge, you will be judged, and with the measure you use, it'll be measured back to you." And why do you look at the speck in your brother's eye, but you do not consider the plank that's in your own? Or how can you say to your brother, "Let me remove the speck from your eye," and look, a plank is in yours? You hypocrite. He said, "First remove the plank from your own eye, and then you'll see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye." You'll see clearly to be able to do that. A liberal thinker also believes you need to protect the weakest from among us. In Matthew chapter 25, verse number 40, the Bible says, "And the king will answer and say to them, Assuredly I say to you, inasmuch as you did it to one of the least of these my brethren, you have done it to me." That's what a liberal thinker will think. He'll also think, redistribute what the rich have. And if you've discovered what rich really means, rich just means that somebody has $100 more than you do. That's rich. Matthew chapter 19, verse number 20, it says, the young man, speaking of the rich young ruler, Jesus, of course, wanted to redistribute what the rich young ruler had, right? He said, the young man said, "I've done all this, what's left?" He said, "If you want to give it all you've got." Jesus replied, "Go and sell your possessions, give everything to the poor, and all your wealth will then be in heaven. Then come and follow me." So you can see every one of those have great merit. There isn't any one of them that actually doesn't. But socially conservative Christians would say this: flip the table over on all of the social ills. Throw the table over. In Matthew chapter 21, verse number 12, speaking of Jesus being in or going into the temple, he said, Jesus entered the temple area and drove out all who were buying and selling there. He overturned the tables and of the money changers and the benches of those selling doves. He said, "It is written, my house will be called a house of prayer, but you are making it a den of thieves." So you see, turning over the social ills that men put into society, Jesus was very interested in being able to get rid of those. And then the next thing a social conservative would say is this: keep your people culturally pure. Everyone say culturally. Say it again. Okay, there's a difference in between cultural and every other kind of thing that would separate people in this room. Culture is different. It's a very different thing. Culture has little to nothing to do with your national origin. What it has to do with is the way that you think. And so Jesus actually said this to them concerning that. He said in Matthew chapter 10, beginning with verse 5, he said, the 12 Jesus sent out with the following instructions. Notice this. He said, do not go among the Gentiles or enter any town of the Samaritans. And people kind of go, well, no, wait a second. You know, that's not what he was saying. That is exactly what he was saying. Do you know one of the things that actually kept the gospel preserved so you could believe it is that the Jews didn't marry all the nations that were around them. So God kept them all together so that they could wait for the time that was appointed of the Father for the Son of Man to come, because he came at the appointed time. And when he came at the appointed time, then all of a sudden he was brought forth, and he was brought forth purely so that he could fulfill the scriptures. And so he said, now don't go into this town of all these other people. Just don't do it. Verse number 6. He said, go rather to the lost sheep of Israel. That's what you do. A lot of times what happens is that people don't think much about, or they think a lot about being able to go to the four corners of the world, but they never went to the four corners of their block. And it becomes a real problem. Because what ends up happening is that your kids end up going to hell, but you take pictures of yourself over there, 9,000 miles away, and you were standing there with some people. I mean, come on. Your greatest, even you saw that about, the fulfilling your promise tonight, that leaving a legacy. You saw that. Your greatest ministry in life is to be able to build your kids. Now, why would a person say, well, now I need to really build my children? Very simply, because that's the only way that the gospel is going to be propagated from the children that you teach. So he said, rather go to the lost sheep of Israel. So he said, now keep yourself culturally pure. And I said, so that's a conservative. A conservative talks about what we call traditional marriage. Now, during the time of Jesus, there were actually two different rabbis, Hillel and Shammai. They both had different opinions. But the word of a rabbi was the word that was always obeyed. He actually, when he would speak, he wasn't speaking the words that are kind of like what I say to you. That whenever his words were spoken, those words were as though that they were law coming from the mouth of God. That's the reason why that, we talked about it once before, that if in fact the community of believers believed that they didn't watch, give me a program, Johnny. A TV program. I know, you're so holy, forget it. Shark Tank. No, I wouldn't think Shark Tank. Huh? Psych? Yeah. How many of you have ever seen Psych? Okay, but here, what happens is that you're a parent and your child's having trouble sleeping because he's watching Psych. I don't even know what the program is, so forgive me but I know a couple psychs. And so I kind of think that they give me trouble sleeping. So here it is. Okay, let's say Real Housewives. How's that? Real Housewives. I can go with Real Housewives because I can fit it in. So Real Housewives, whether it's Atlanta, New Jersey, New York, Orange County, Beverly Hills, London, however you want to do it. Don't forget London. Don't forget London. And so, is there any others that I missed? Who? Austin. Auckland? I have not seen that one yet. Potomac. You know, when I started falling off, after OC kind of backed out and Beverly Hills were finished, I was kind of done. Because I didn't like people being really, I don't mind girls being catty, but I don't like girls trying to throw each other across the room. That just doesn't seem cool. But anyway, let's say that you didn't want your kids to watch Real Housewives. If you were in a synagogue and you all had a rabbi, the rabbi would say, hey, it's okay. Watch Real Housewives. Or he says, no, you can't watch it. And whatever that is, everybody there who follows that particular rabbi actually listens to what he said so that everyone is on the same page. Now, during the time of Jesus, there were two rabbis, Shammai and Hillel. There were two of these rabbis, and they had different opinions concerning marriage, concerning salvation, concerning heaven. One of them believed that there was a resurrection. The other one believed that there wasn't. So you had the Sadducees and the Pharisees. And so what they did was they wanted to come to Jesus to find out, what did Jesus believe about marriage? Because the Sadducees, they thought that you could get a divorce if you didn't like the hamburger helper she made. He'd take her shoes and he'd put the shoes out. He would say to her 3 times, I'm divorcing you. You are divorced. You are divorced. And she was divorced, and he put her out. Because remember, Jesus, they said to Jesus, is it right? But the other ones, the Pharisees, were different. They were strict biblicists. And so they didn't go for this whole thing of, Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young, change your partners. They didn't do that. They weren't interested in that. On the other hand, what they were was, listen, you got her, you might as well tell her that you love her and get along with her, because you're going nowhere, because we have a kingdom to win. So that's where, now, the Sadducees come and they want to trip Jesus up, and they also want to stick it to the Pharisees, because all of them are standing around. So here we pick it up in Matthew chapter 19. It said, the Pharisees also came to him, testing him, and saying to him, is it lawful for a man to divorce his wife for any reason? Verse 4, and he answered and said to them, have you not read that he who made them at the beginning made them male and female? That ought to tell you a lot. Made them male and female. He said, for this reason a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. He said, so then they are no longer two, but one. Therefore, what God has joined together, let no man break apart. So here's the deal. Is one of them says, oh no, we can get divorced for any reason. So now, by and large, we have one set of thinkers in America who just say, hey, that's really great. However you want. However many you want. It's like the guy that got married 9 times. Somebody said to me, well, what do you think about a guy getting married 9 times? I said, you know what? I really respect him. Somebody said, got married 9 times. I really respect this guy. Well, yeah, I do. Well, why do you respect him? I said, because he believes in an institution. He believes in marriage. I didn't say I like the fact that he got married 9 times. I just said I liked the fact that he wanted to get married again. That's all. And so Jesus was very much came down on the side of the Pharisees when it came to marriage. He didn't come down on the side of the Sadducees. Isn't it interesting how that we have over 1,000 different Christian denominations in America? We have now we don't even think about what that is. We don't think about whether or not that there's a denominational issue at all. We just don't make them up anymore. Why is it? Because people that have no denomination, you can never judge them over what they believe. Because they don't believe anything. Or, I'm sorry, they believe everything. Oh yeah, we believe that. Oh gosh, yes. You believe? Man, I believe in marriage. You believe in divorce? Yeah, if you have a tough weekend. We believe in that. All right. Traditional marriage. So then what's the conclusion? Here's my conclusion. Was Jesus a liberal or a conservative? Trying to answer this question is like nailing Jell-O to a wall. I tried that, doesn't work. I thought, let me try to get some Jell-O and nail this out. But here's my long thought out answer, and I've thought about this. In one sense, Jesus was neither liberal nor conservative. And in another sense, Jesus was both liberal and conservative. Jesus was neither liberal nor conservative. Because he came proclaiming a higher reality. He came proclaiming God's kingdom. In John chapter 18, beginning with verse number 36, it says, Jesus answered, he said, my kingdom is not of this world. If my kingdom were of this world, my servants would fight, so that I should not be delivered to the Jews. But now my kingdom is not from here. In 1 John chapter 3, verse number 8, it says, he who sins is of the devil, for the devil has sinned from the beginning. For this purpose was the Son of God. This is the purpose. Was the Son of God manifest, that he might destroy the works of the devil. So Jesus didn't come for the religious. He didn't come for the Sadducee or for the Pharisee. He came for you and he came for me. So Jesus was both liberal and conservative. In his teachings, we see the ideals which both conservatives and liberals really affirm. While we all have many differences about what we believe or we think is right, our similarities are much greater. Because there are many things that we agree upon. So what was Jesus? Was he a liberal or was he conservative? That's something that you have to decide. Was Jesus liberal or was he conservative? Because almost everybody wants to jump on the Jesus train when it seems like it's good. But one thing I've learned is that realizing that I can't stand everywhere, I have to stand somewhere. I have to be benevolent. So do I stand in a place where I'm a conservative guy that wants to care for the less fortunate? Or am I a liberal guy who's got to admit that sometimes some of the other ideas are right? Where do you want to stand? You just have to choose. I stand for people, never against them. So I'd say that he is the foundation This is what I would say about Jesus. I'd say he is the foundation for all the good that man could ever exemplify. So was Jesus a liberal or conservative? You need to choose. I told you what God's word says. For me, sometimes I think Jesus is an absolute liberal. Flaming. And on the other days, I think he's a super conservative. And then I think, Jesus, you're so big. I have absolutely no clue what you are. Except all I know is you love people. You care for people. You came to bring people together out of every tribe, every kindred, every tongue, and every nation. You brought us together. You didn't put us apart. So I pray that tonight you don't see me or find me as being wishy-washy, because I'm not. I believe 100% of everything I told you. So it's not to me. Somebody said, well, yeah, but what do you really believe? That's what I really believe. I really believe we're going to find out that he wasn't anything. It's like somebody asked, like, what color you think Jesus is? I said, wouldn't you be surprised if he was green? If he were green, oh yeah, you'll be going. You know, one time I thought I was about to backslide. I've since done it a couple times, but one time I thought I was going to. I was just about to do that. Because I thought that Jesus was an alien. I thought like he was like from outer space. Because I know it's out there somewhere. I thought he was from outer space. And I thought, man, could I worship somebody from outer space? And I thought, why not? Because even in outer space, I know Jesus is Lord there. No matter where it is, he's still Lord of all. And that's what kind of excites me about it. Did you learn anything? You know, you have to admit, why don't you just admit that I actually ran the rail pretty well? I didn't get off on too many things that I have to repent for. I'll get a couple emails, but not that many. And I'll be okay about it. And